Wow. Wow. Like a slap in the face, the sun produces another massive uptick, both in radio flux and in sunspot number. If you haven't watched us on Twitch, twitch.tv/smashomash is the main place we stream live. And thanks for tuning in, everybody, all of you stargazers out there. We're looking at the southern hemisphere because this new group, Sunspot 2978, is indeed a giant beta-class sunspot. The likelihood of solar flares really high, much higher, with the result of that new umbra showing up. Also, new sunspots forming to its south, to its west, new sunspots forming in the northern hemisphere. We'll get to it. We've also had extended periods of geomagnetic unrest as we forecasted, and we can expect more, despite NOAA dropping the ball on the forecast. Let's look at the last 4 hours of magnetohydrodynamic pressure. This is the Geospace Magnetosphere movie showing Earth's magnetic moment from space. And you can see a relatively high pressure here. We still do see an elevated solar wind speed. We'll get to that in a moment. It's at about 550 kilometers per second at the moment we record this video. This one's a YouTube exclusive, by the way, so press like, press subscribe, tell your friends and foes about us, press the share button. There's that extended period of geomagnetic unrest, lasting about 15 hours there. We've dropped back down to a KP2. Don't be surprised to see this go back to a KP4 or even a KP5 geomagnetic storm condition, depending on things like magnetism. So here is the GOES magnetometers. GOES magnetometers over the past 3 days there, the GOES 16 and GOES 17. If you want to read about those measurements, click on details here on this details tab. This details tab on the GOES magnetometer page. You can read all about those measurements, and you can see these spiky readings here. These are typical of coronal hole high-speed streams, as high-speed plasma affects the GOES magnetometers. Next, ground magnetic perturbations, Earth's magnetic moment from the ground in nanotesla. Geospace delta B changes to Earth's B field. So here's what's going on with the Earth B field. We're going to show you the Sun's B field as well momentarily. The B field is the field that goes through the magnet, folks. And as we close out March, I would remind our viewers once again that March is the second most geomagnetically active month. Continuing on to the real-time solar wind. Again, we have an elevated solar wind speed here at about, now at over 560 kilometers per second. Solar wind density about 9.3 protons per cubic centimeter. As the high-speed coronal hole wind stream continues, if we see this top red line dip well into the south, we'll go right back into geomagnetic unrest conditions. Again, we can expect to see this high-speed coronal hole wind stream last for days, and I would expect it to get even higher from here. As we do see the density finally dropping off, it looks like there may be another small density spike happening, so we can expect the density to drop off even more and the velocity to come up even higher, which again can also help to spark geomagnetic unrest and storm conditions. Looking at the heliospheric current sheet, Earth is in a south pole current sheet, as you can see here from the last frames of this Gong 2 data, part of the National Sunspot Observatory. And we may be getting into a magnetic tug-of-war here, where it may be quite difficult to predict the polarity of the current sheet. In other words, we could see a north one come back through here. It all depends on various things like sunspot activity in each hemisphere. No forecast for that, but at the moment, Earth remains in a south pole-oriented current sheet, as you can see here shown in red. Here's a line of sight view. You can see a little bit of green showing up there on the left of your screen. Excuse me. Next, we'll look at coronal holes. Here's the coronal hole line of sight plot, as well as the Sun's B field. Those blue lines there are the Sun's B field. And we've got massive sunspots facing Earth. We'll get to that in a moment. Before we do that, we'll look at the 193 angstroms ionized iron view. Here's ionized iron from the SDO. What's your favorite telescope? I think mine is the Solar Dynamics Observatory. There are many good ones to choose from. The James Webb may prove all kinds of cosmology things to be correct or incorrect, but in any case, we spend a lot of time looking at the SDO. This is part of the extreme ultraviolet electromagnetic spectrum. Ultraviolet light in 193 angstroms. Ionized iron, you can see North Pole-oriented coronal holes rotating out. Those are the ones that we're seeing a high-speed wind stream from now. South Pole ones rotating in. as the solar polar field reversal cycle continues. Solar cycle 25 looking a lot more like a grand solar maximum than a grand solar minimum. Let's move on to sunspots next, as the likelihood of solar flares has gone way up with the rising of sunspot 2978. It's now beta gamma class. There's another group of sunspots down here. There's another group of sunspots out here, which will be known as 2979 and 2980, and I'm losing track of the numbers. The likelihood of solar flares is very high. And we're going to see the sunspot number jump way up to like 120 today. Assuming all of these sunspots remain stable, radial flux is all the way up to 130 solar flux units. It's serious activity. Now let's take some more detailed imagery here of the closest star. Here are the 1700 angstroms frames from the SDO. And again, many more sunspots than in yesterday's video. Let's blast through some more here. We don't want to spend too much time on the zoomed out views when we've got zoomed in views. So here's the northern hemisphere. You're going to see some sunspots spontaneously form. A huge group out here ahead of sunspot 2975. Again, likelihood of solar flares goes way up. This sunspot out here has gained complexity as well. How about that same view in 171 angstroms? Quite spectacular. Also some filamentary behavior coming out of that area, sort of toward the beginning of the video. Yowzers. So here's sunspot 2975 and the sunspots that are ahead of it. These things all raise the probability of major solar flares. These are all beta gamma class sunspot groups. How about 171 angstroms for that same view? Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, as our channel covers the sun more in depth than anybody on the internet. We haven't forgotten about the southern hemisphere. This group rising here is gigantic. You can see its main umbra there larger than the Earth, and the trailing umbra pushing the size of the Earth there. It's beta gamma class. Sunspot 2978. Here's that view in 171 angstroms. And let's not spend too much time on that. Yowzers. I'm going to let that play through a second time. By the way, press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you prefer to see the content continue to exist and remain publicly visible, we'll talk about ways to do that as well. Are you spaced out? Thanks for being spaced out. Thanks for putting up with the pathetic censorship on the platform of YouTube. Dear YouTube, please fix your software. We also are on BitChute. We've been putting up exclusive videos on there. If you haven't checked us out there, bitchute.com/smashomash. Nothing controversial, just additional content. Also on twitch.tv/smashomash, our original video today was indeed streamed live. Make sure you check out our homepage if you haven't. Help us out with clicks. Perhaps become a member of the Smash team. Head to smashomash.com. You can find links below the video. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Did you know we're writing a paper to plausibly explain the sunspot cycles and solar polar field reversal cycles? Yeah, it's true, folks. It's true. We've run into some technical difficulties associated with all kinds of things. Shout out to Eugene Bagashoff. Not that he would be related to our technical difficulties. Oh no, that would be impossible. Consider becoming a member of the Smash team if you'd like to support us in a Patreon-esque fashion. We replaced Patreon with a superior site, our own, smashomash.com/smash team. We still do have a Patreon. You can still contribute that way. But to see the exclusive content for paid-up members only, head to smashomash.com/smash team. Again, links below the video, as well as on our homepage at smashomash.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into the Smash News Network. May that solar wind be at your back. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off.